Imagine a world where the Holy Roman Empire didn't exist, at least not in the same shape that we usually would think of. Imagine it's actually Frankish, with France acting as the emperor of the Holy Frankish Empire. It's been a long time since I've seen a mod like this one, and I have been begging modders I know to update the original one for a long time. It finally was, and it is going to be linked in the description. Drew did a video on a project like this a few years back, and it is one of my favorites of all time from him, but quite a lot has changed since then, and I want to see how things look in 2023. It is going to be a very fun one, and if you guys agree, make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ding the bell so you don't miss out on future uploads. I have been asking people to make this mod for so long, and I'm so glad it's finally here. Drew did a video on a mod very similar to this like 4 years ago, and me being the spiritual successor to EU4's version of Drew, I think that it is only fair that I finally get to copy this video from him as well. The Holy Roman Empire is over in France and northern Italy, with Germany being very disunited, but very much not united in terms of an HRE mechanic. The rest of the map is the same, except for natives. We get rid of natives because they just slow the game down and they're not fun at all. So the reason this looks like this is because I'm using a UI mod, but the Holy Frankish Empire is what it shall be called, is getting 0.7 Imperial authority every month, which is pretty cool. Looks like Versailles actually gives them a little bit of extra boost there, which I'm sure they're gonna need because there's quite a bit of land that is actually controlled by nations outside of the Frankish Empire, specifically over in the lowlands. I'm sure that that will be handled via Imperial incident. I'm not actually sure how Imperial incidents work with this one. The dev for this mod has been in my Discord, and I've just been kind of like pestering him like, hey, can you update this mod? Hey, can you update this mod? He's also the guy behind the mod that swaps, you know, like Chinese Empire and the HRE, as well as the one where Japan Shogunate is switched with the HRE. So a lot of fun little things like that. So shout out you, you're cool. This mod is going to be linked in the description. I probably would have said it in the intro, but I really encourage you to check it out because mods like this are very fun. And if there's interest in it, I'm sure people will make more of them. And about a year in, the 100 Years' War has kicked off, so that still exists. France is probably weaker, if I had to guess, than France and Vanilla, but you gotta remember, they actually get quite a bit of bonuses, especially like manpower here, because of their bonuses from being the emperor of the HRE. So hard to say how things will go with this, but the numbers are fairly lopsided for France, and England is gonna need to occupy Paris in order to get war goal. So I'm pretty sure France wins. And literally the instant after I unpause, the emperor is dead. Long live the new emperor, Louis XI. Nice little boost to Imperial authority. So it looks like we're gonna at least see a couple of reforms pushed through. I know that quite a bit of balance has been put into making Imperial authority scale. I'm really curious how the Reformation will pop, if it will actually be focused more over here rather than Germany. We'll see how things go with that. And I would really like to see them actually push down and get some reforms. That would be cool. And it does appear that England has been pushed back to the sea, and the War of Roses appears to be going on at the same time, with Contenton going to Normandy and Maine going to France. So England no longer has any lands on the mainland except for Calais, which conspicuously was not taken by the French, but I'm sure that they will come for it eventually. And meanwhile, to the south, the Neapolitan War for Independence against Aragon, backed up by Castile, is going on, but it doesn't look so good because it actually looks like Castile is losing, or at least they're not doing well in the war. Naples is controlling Sicily, but then Castile is getting sieged down. They've actually lost forts with quite a few troops surrounding their armies, so we'll see how things go with that one. And here we go, about 14 years in, we have the call for Reichsreform, the very German name for the Holy Frankish Empire. So not too bad. I think that's actually kind of on pace with Vanilla. So we may not see a whole lot of reforms, but maybe we will. I don't know. Whenever there's internal peace, they're actually gaining 0.2 per month, which is very, very good. If the AI gets lucky and not a lot of nations declare war, we may end up seeing some pretty powerful reforms pushed through. Brandenburg looking pretty good. I saw some pink occupation lines over here. Thought it was Poland, but it's actually Denmark for the second Swedish War for Independence, which is going on. You can see the first one did not go to plan. But so far this one is, and they are actually winning. Maybe, we'll see. With Brandenburg on their side, I imagine that Sweden is probably in a much better spot because two-front war for Denmark, it's not too good, especially against a Germanic power. I think we know how that one goes. Meanwhile, Otto's over here doing their thing, but for some reason, the Mams are at war with Syria. I don't know what happened here, but not looking good for the Mams. Also worth mentioning, Castile has the PU over Aragon, happened very shortly after the war, where Aragon even took a province from Castile, so that's really funny. Naples is free after losing a bit of land, and they even took back some of their cores from Aragon, and neither of them have De Trastamara on the throne. And so I guess that dynasty is just gone. France ended up eating up Brittany, who was one of the electors, and now the HFE not looking good, down to 15 princes from I think 23 before. So yeah, I lied. They're not going to pass any reforms. They might pass one more. Maybe. We'll see how the Reformation looks whenever it does end up popping. Yeah, so that is one thing that I definitely suspected, is that we were going to have a slower Reformation, because there's so many less tags, with Germany being consolidated between like 10 different tags rather than like 50 in vanilla. So Reform Desire ticking up very slowly, but it is still ticking up, not to be worried. The Holy Frankish Empire, though, continues to truck forward, doing very well. Apparently there's a modifier here giving 0.1 per month. I don't know what it's for. It is not localized, but there's also internal peace. So it's actually ticking up very quickly, almost a whole point every 3 months. That's 4 points per year. We very well may see a couple more reforms pushed through before the Reformation really digs in. We also had the Burgundian inheritance, and the lowlands were demanded independence, which helps out a ton with the malice that they were getting. That was giving them, like, I think it was 25 provinces or something like that. So it cut it almost in half. So looking much better than it did before, at least until the Reformation begins. Now the Reformation is here. It is 1520. Northern Germany, which is actually just all Brandenburg, has been consolidated and has been converted, or at least the state religion has been converted to Protestant, which I think you already know means we are indefinitely going to see a Prussia, at least whenever the tech will allow it. And meanwhile, to the south, looks like Ottomans are doing a little bit of Ottomaning, with Venice conquering quite a bit of northern Italy, as well as over into Croatia. So looking pretty cool. Hungary has been absolutely gutted by Bohemia, and Austria, without the emperorship, not really going to be able to do a whole lot. Though I do love to see Switzerland breaking those Geneva Conventions and pushing their borders just a little bit. Though I will say I'm a little surprised to see the Ottomans and the Mamluks so static. Ottomans are expanding, don't get me wrong, but why are they not expanding into the Mamluks? They're clearly not having a good game. So Ottomans, a bit of a missed opportunity, I think. Over in Japan, you have this Yusugi doing pretty well with a couple of other smaller nations, but I'm always rooting for Oda. Oda is my favorite daimyo. Korea has not changed their borders a single province in 80 years, which is very good. The Manchu tribes are a mess, but Ming, holding strong. Of course, being in the 1500s, we do have colonization going on. Brazil, as well as more Brazil, and then Rio de Prata going to the Iberian nations. We have the British North Atlantic Islands, so that's a thing. But aside from Iceland, there is no colonization going on in the New World, except for Bermuda going also to Castile, and the Caribbean also going to Portugal, and a few provinces over in Texas going to the Spanish. Big conversions going on in Europe. We've got a lot of Protestant up here in the north, slowly converting Germany for some reason, but we do have a Protestant Bohemia, which I think was from the Hussite stuff, though I could be wrong, and then Reform down in Switzerland, with Anglican going on over on the British Isles. Of course, it wouldn't be a game where the HRE doesn't exist if Prussia didn't form and wasn't horrifyingly, incredibly powerful in like 1545. So 100 years in, Prussia looking incredibly good, as does the Ottomans now, because of course I mentioned them not doing super good. So they decided to just snake the Mamluks. So that's a thing. Spain has also formed and is pushing over into Italy, so I'm sure that that will put them at odds with the Empire. The Empire, which is doing quite well. They actually have the perpetual diet, and it looks like France is maintaining their dominance. I don't know. I think they're basically guaranteed to go decentralized, but I could be wrong. We'll see how things go. Also, it looks like just cleave happening here. It's probably my UI mod, but worth mentioning, I think. The British and the Danish have made their way over to Canada, as they normally do, with the Spanish settling over here in the rest of North America. The Dutch have arrived in Colombia, and the Spanish and the Portuguese continue to fill out the southern portions of the continent. The Spanish Cape of Good Hope has been founded, and Kilwa, absolutely blobbing over here, may be an issue for some of the colonial powers. And the Indian blobs be Indian blobbing, with Baumanis and Vijay, neither of them taking over, though Vijay doing fine. Baumanis looks like they've declined a bit, but Bengal very big, mostly just because of the worthless mountain land they have up here in Tibet. Over 100 years in the age of Reformation, the great powers of the world, the Ottomans, by a decent margin, with Spain and a terrifying Prussia in the third spot, Great Britain in the fourth, with Portugal in the fifth, Venice almost taking Portugal for the fifth spot in the sixth, with the Ming, because they're very, very behind on institutions, in the seventh, with Poland actually in the eighth spot. And if the Frankish Empire can keep on pushing through some reforms, they very well may be a force to be reckoned with, and I'm very much here for it. And of course, I'm sure you guys are as well, considering it's literally the whole purpose of this video. And another 100 years goes by, Russia grows a lot more, as does Sweden, so it looks like the Protestant bloc doing pretty good. Switzerland, however, I did not expect to be an absolute menace over here in northern Italy and southern Germany / Austria. I did not expect this, but I'm very much a fan of Big Switzerland. As an avid video game watcher who doesn't actually get directly involved in most of the conflicts, Switzerland does speak to me. It is my spirit animal, if you will. And see, I made a mistake by saying the Ottomans weren't doing much because they had to prove me wrong by literally doing everything. Ottomans are dummy thick, being extra, and all those fancy words that you Zoomers like to use. Timmy right next door doing okay, and Delhi pushing up north, which is mildly hilarious. Though India looking a lot more stable than it used to, with Gujarat coming out to be the major guy up here, splitting the north with Delhi, Jaunpur, and a bit of Bengal, who has pushed down into Orissa. So Vijay consolidating a bit of land in the south, eating most of Bamanis. Definitely excited to see who comes out of India on top. Who did not come out on top in China is Ming. They ain't looking so good, and their successors of Shun even pushed a couple of provinces into Korea, my beloved, which I hate to see. But at least it's only 2 provinces. And then across the pond here, we have Kurishiten, Japan, apparently. So, Kurishiten, Japan. Okay. The Dutch have arrived over here. Nothing to see here, just some spice flowing for those Dutch colonists. We also have Portuguese over here, and the Normans, apparently. The Normans are also over here in the Solomon Sea, which is very funny. But Portuguese Australia, as well as Portuguese Australia, all very Portuguese. As is most of South America outside of Brazil. They took over the poor Dutch's colonies over here in Colombia. British took Panama, as well as one province over here in like Guyana, and the rest is just Portuguese and Castilian, with the majority of North America going to the Portuguese and the Castilians as well, with Florida and the 13 colonies splitting the east, and then Newfoundland dominating the north. We do have an extra province over here because the Mamluks decided to do a little bit of colonization. So sadly, they won't make it to Australia, but they did indeed make it to Alaska, which is pretty funny. I have no idea what happened here. The Holy Frankish Empire has no electors, is losing 0.89 imperial authority per month, with the emperor being von Hohenzollern of Sweden. Okay, and the UA ain't lying to you. They really are, and I think that can only mean one thing. Somehow the Protestants ended up pushing into the empire and basically dominating it from the outside, because the Protestants are basically just Sweden and Prussia. I didn't think that these guys were going to be like the supervillains of the run, but they definitely are, and I am a big fan of that. And so with a little under 200 years left, Prussia dominating, but Spain and their colonial empire in the second spot, with the Ottomans going to take that #1 spot as soon as they embrace institution, with Portuguese colonial, of course, in the 4th spot. Shun over in China still dominating, actually surpassing the Ming, with Switzerland very funnily in the 6th spot, France, the former emperor of the Holy Frankish Empire, in the 7th spot, and then Kilwa, a southern African power, in the 8th. You may be looking at Yemen, wondering how in the world did they get here? And my friends, it is an interesting tale. I'm not going to tell you, because I don't really know, but it's definitely pretty funny to see them over here in Oman. As we move on up through the Ottomans' lands, you're going to see some interesting stuff, like German Eastern Europe, German Ruthenia, Swedish Baltic, split in half by Muscovy, with Novgorod up here. And Timmy. Yeah, Germany forming was probably inevitable, let's be honest. But I love it. I am a big fan of this. They actually turned on their old friends of Sweden, who share their dynasty, and are gobbling them up, a couple provinces here and there. And meanwhile, Spain has consolidated a bunch of land over here. Saluzzo is about to get exiled to Corsica, which is incredibly funny. And the Holy Frankish Empire is actually worse off than it was before. I think it had 13 princes last time we looked. Now we have 10, losing over 1.1 imperial authority per month. So clearly it is a relic of what it once was, neither holy nor Frankish. Well, maybe Frankish. No, definitely not Frankish, nor an empire. North America, as well as Southern America, looks the same as it did before. Maybe things have filled in just a bit, but Africa looks a little more different. We got the French Niger over here with Norman Guinea. Oh, I always love to see like random things like that. And then I believe that this is the Dutch over here colonizing Calabar with their friendly little crocodilians over here. Tell me how Kilwa manages to be a great power with this. Says a lot about the rest of the world, huh? And then of course we have, you know, Normandy. Everybody knows about Normandy, right? Their capital over here in like Lehi, or however that's pronounced. It's pretty good. I like that. Shun continues to dominate over here, even eating up a bit of Wu, as well as finishing off the Ming, and continuing to eat a little bit of Korea, which does hurt my heart just a bit, but I'm pretty happy overall to see a Chinese nation doing well at all. I mean, normally they don't. So normally whenever there's somebody who picks up the pieces of the former Ming Empire as well as a ton of other stuff, that's pretty cool. I like this. Christian Japan has a couple of pox marks over here, but all is well. And if you can believe it, Germany and the Ottomans are within like 23 development of each other, which is awesome. I love to see it. If the Ottomans embrace institution, they will actually be ahead of Germany. For how long? Hard to say, but we've got about 100 years left. Following the two big dogs, we have Spain and their colonial empire, as well as Portugal and their colonial empire in the third and fourth spot. Fifth is Shun, which is crazy. Almost 2,500 development is nutty. The former French Empire there in France at the sixth slot, with Gujarat, an Indian blob, popping out of the seventh spot. And eighth spot, another Indian blob in Bengal. No hegemons yet, but it is definitely still early, at least in terms of people snowballing incredibly ridiculously hard. So we'll see how things look here in about 100 years. And here we have it, the true dominating nation of the North American continent here. Canada, with a little bit of California over here, in California and whatever this is, Sinaloa or whatever. But yeah, Canada looking incredibly good, with Portuguese Cascadia basically just Alaska, even losing some of the Alaskan lands. So shout out Canada, shout out Cuba, shout out California, breaking free of their former overlords and enjoying that freedom of North America. And I spoke too soon, because it's actually South America just as free. They were liberated. I wonder if they have a Libertador, or however it's pronounced. We'll see. But we have Colombia, Paraguay, Chile, and Brazil hanging out with Colombia and Brazil, because why wouldn't they? But British Columbia does still have some land over here near the Fountain of the Youth. So that's pretty good. Japan lost some land to Shun, but took some land up here. That way their name could be nice and big. So smart play in the big scheme of things. I think this is relevant. Sadly, Korea not looking good. Korea just got like diced and sliced, and a little bit of border gore over here, but at least they have, their capital and Jeju and whatever this is. India actually never really consolidated. Normally I feel like you see one major blob that pops out, but it is still very much at least a three-way tie between Delhi, Bengal, and Gujarat. VJ definitely didn't lose. They got edged out a bit, and Malwa also got gobbled up a bit, but still pretty cool to see. Sadly, it looks like the Normans were eaten up by the French, which is poetic, because the French are now getting eaten up by the Germans, which is interesting and all. But what about Cuban Iberia? Because the Cubans decided to take some Portuguese land, which is very, very funny. And I think this is the Ottomans currently beating up on Spain, Italy, German. So this has been a really weird game. Of course, the revolution did not stop. It kept on going and going and going. And revolutionary Germany, revolutionary Muscovy, revolutionary Bulgaria, and we even have a revolutionary Albania over here. Very funny to see. Georgia, revolutionary. Somehow Ottomans not, Timurids not, Switzerland not. So all things considered, I would say the revolution had a very good go at it, but only enough so that two of the great powers are revolutionary, with Germany in the #1 spot, very well beating out the Ottomans, with the Ottomans in a respectable second spot, Shun in the third, doing pretty good. Canada, a former colonial nation, in the fourth great power, with France following them. Spain, even though they lost a bunch of their colonies, in that sixth spot. Great Britain in the seventh, who I actually think Canada was a Great Britain colony, if I recall correctly. And then Bengal in the eighth, with a naval hegemon going for Germany. I always love that when the massive land powers have a naval hegemon, because reasons. And then we have a military hegemon for the Ottomans. Very, very spooky. The religious map mode basically looks what you would expect. Lots of Protestants, though I can't say that I expected to see Protestant Muscovy. But then when you see that they are a march of Germany, it makes a little bit more sense. A little bit. I wouldn't say much, but a little bit. Regardless, Protestants continue to push over here, with Anglicans in the Isles, Protestants in Italy. Oh, my goodness. And then Catholics over here, but they're getting beat up on. Over in the New World, it's mostly Catholic, though, because, Iberia did all of the colonization. Bit of Shinto conversions going on over here in Siberia, as well as in Manchuria. But aside from that, not really a whole lot. Does look like the Buddhists have been occupied by Confucians, but not really a whole lot of conversions going on. It's all Catholic in the upside down, and honestly, not a whole lot of conversions in Africa at all. But shout out Ebadi Jolof, one province minor over here. That's pretty good. The HRE was just disbanded, or the HFE. I don't know. Either way, it's gone. It just doesn't exist. I think it's because there was only a couple of eligible nations, but Catholics couldn't do it because of the treaty, and so it just got disbanded. because these guys were a republic, if I had to guess. So that's pretty interesting. Culturally, not a whole lot going on except for some Prussian expansion over here into the Czech lands. That's really it, though the Prussians also pushed the Lithuanians out of Lithuania. I believe that the Finns may have been displaced, but for the most part, American and English in the north, Castilian and Mexican making up the rest over here, with the left coast mostly Portuguese. South America doing the South American thing where everything is Brazilian, except Brazil, which is Platinian. But I do love seeing a couple of Dutch provinces and a couple of Norman provinces over here in Colombia. It really does show who got in on the colonial game and then who had it stolen from them. But that was a really fun one. I enjoyed that a lot. If you have a cool mod like that, make sure you drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like on it, and don't forget to subscribe and ding the bell so you get notified when these videos go up live every week. I appreciate you making it to the end of the video, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.
Special thanks to Kaiser Dar of Acadia, Sheol, Gammas23, Ian Powell, Cannon Fodder, Josh Kopczynski, Agent Rhino, Blonde Damon, Isaiah, Rover, Bubba J, Saronska, Ricardo, Cobalt, Rex, Nathan Albright, and many more.